Well, this is Jeannie with Norna's Scraps. As much as I love quilting the hoop, there are sometimes I just want to piece. Just let those 2.5-inch strips grow together at my machine. But then you have a lot of stuff that you need to have quilted. So I've been playing with another addition to quilting the hoop, and it's to take a traditionally pieced strip piecing block into or place it in my machine and quilt it in the hoop. Very much like I've been doing everything else, but just it's already pieced before I get it there. It's not a plain block of fabric. I'm not going to stand there and piece and trim. I'm just going to piece it and stick it in my embroidery hoop and let it go. I can do this in QuiltArtist 1, 2, or 3. If you would like directions or need some guidance in how to create that basic finished block of 8 inches or 8.5 inches, and really you can make, that's the cut size I mean, you can make any size you want. You just have to change the finished size of your block. You could do a 6.5 inch cut for whatever you want. I'm referring you to my blog. On my blog there's another video. There's some very basic directions on creating the stitch or quilt in the hoop block that is actually going to be the basis for this video. So what am I going to do? The next thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to make sure that I have watched the other video and I'm going to go to File and Open, and actually I'm going to scroll to where I have my basic 8-inch finished basic right here and bring it in as a BE file. I've already done that, but for me that would be in my embroidery file on my computer. So I've opened that up, and let's just take a quick look at it. Over in my objects menu you can see 3 separate objects. The first object is an outline with a run stitch. If I select it, you can see it. That is the finished size of my block. So that block is, or that square is 8 inches. The next is my batting placement. My batting placement is overall 1/8 of an inch smaller than my finished size. So it would be, the measurement would be 7 7/8 inch. You can see that right up here. I'm in the Create menu, not Create Design menu. The final square that you have for now is what I call the fabric holding. Fabric holding would normally be stitched out with water-soluble thread. Okay, we're going to add 2 more blocks or 2 more squares to this particular design. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric holding stitch and select it. Let's move now. Actually, we're fine. Let's go ahead and in the Create menu, select that. We're going to copy it, which is Control-C on a PC or Command-C on my Mac, and we're going to paste it. Click off of it, and we're going to Command-V on my Mac or Control-V on my PC. And by clicking off in the Create menu, I've actually created another object, and that's exactly what I want. We're going to change the color right now. So with it selected, we're going to go down to the very bottom to where it shows the color, and I don't care what color it is, so let's just take a dark sepia. Select the color and say OK. What we're going to do now is we're going to change the size of this particular square, and we're going to go in and we're going to make it be the outline upon which we are going to lay our cut edges of our strip piece block. So it's going to be larger than anything else. I'm going to plan to use a low loft batting, warm and natural, something very, very low loft. Joann's has what they call a low loft batting, but it's actually a little bit, it's got too much spring in it for this technique. So you need a cotton fiber, maybe a wool batting, something natural. And I'm going to go up here to my menu. When I place my batting, which is done in the second step, it's going to create a little bit of a ridge for my block to lay on. So it won't be flat, and it won't be exactly 8.5 inches flat, because it has to lay over the batting. I think when you get to the stitching part of this block, you'll see what I mean. So my last fabric holding, and I'm going to change the name of that to say block outline. Let's go cut block outline. It'll be clearer like that. Cut block outline. And with it selected, I'm going to increase the size. Normally it would be 8.5, but because of the loft of the batting, I don't want it 8.5. I'm going to increase it to be 8 and 4/8 is 1/2. So let's go 8 and 3/8 inches. Now I want to make sure my lock is engaged. That way it will size proportionately. And I'm going to click enter, and you can see that it has snapped to be larger. Now of course, if you do not have a hoop that the stitching area accommodates this size, you're going to have to create your own size block. In the end, my cut edge of my pieced block is going to lay on top of that stitching. So I'm going to actually bring that up to my above, how about right? Yeah, number 2. So I'm going to have my run, which is my finish size. I'm going to have my cut block outline. I'm going to have my batting placement, and I'm going to have my fabric holding. Now, in the end, I could actually do these the same color, but for now, just so we can tell the difference, I'm going to. That's 4 steps that I'm going to be using in order to just get it done. Okay? Outline, finished size, cut block outline, batting placement, and after this I trim my batting, fabric holding. So in between step 3 and 4 is when I'm actually going to place my pieced block on top of this particular set of squares. Now in order to make sure I want them all centered, and on my StitchArtist 3 I can select all, which is Command A. On a PC it's Control A, and I'm going to center my designs in the hoop, and they were perfect anyway. I didn't need to worry about my Embrilliance. Now I want a quilting stitch. This is not going to be a block that is quilted to the background, or I'm sorry, to the back of my quilt. It's going to be the floating block technique, which is so prevalent right now in a lot of the quilt in the hoop designs. So for that, my quilting can actually come out to the edge of my block. I'm going to take my fabric holding stitch and I'm going to duplicate it one more time. That's Command C or Control C. Click off of it. Now I'm going to paste it. Command V on a Mac, Control V on a PC. Again, I'm going to change the color. So I come down to the bottom of my Objects menu, click on that, go to something I haven't used, which is the red, and say OK. Now remember, I'm not doing any piecing in my hoop. My block is already pieced. So before I get to my fabric holding stitch, between my batting placement and my fabric holding, I will have placed my, I would have trimmed my batting down, and then I'll place my strip pieced block on top of it. The fabric holding is it'll keep it nice and tight. Okay, so now we're going to move to our Create Design menu, click on it, and I'm going to just make that work together. Did you see what I did? I hovered my mouse, left mouse clicked when I saw the red bow tie, and just made sure they were layered one on top of the other. Now I'm going to add, let's do the freestanding or quilted fill. And I've already done some adjusting to it, but I think this is really cool. I came over here under density, highlighted the density in millimeters and typed in 20, and it made it a nice, not too tight cross-hatching quilt. Now, if you look, you can see some of the edges are running across the top. What we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to move our beginning and our ending stitches until those all disappear. So I'm going to hover my mouse on my beginning, left mouse click hold, and bring this to the corner. And then I'm going to do the same with the ending, which is the red, left mouse click hold, bring it to the corner. And as I look around, there's no longer the jumping here, but I've got it up here. So let's try one more time, up to the top. And that seems to have taken care of all of those little pesky little jump stitches. So this is going to be my design. This is going to be sent to my machine, and then there'll be several steps at the machine which I will show you, but for now let's send it to the machine and get to quilting. Okay, I am at my machine and I have my hoop set up with my no-show mesh, and I'll explain this white tape in another video because it's truly amazing. I have an 8.5 inch square of batting, and I want you to take a little look. You can see maybe it is very low loft. This is, I believe, warm and natural, and it's probably, the loft is probably 1/8 of an inch thick. And I have my strip piece block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to the machine and start stitching, and I'll be soon. Okay, since I forgot to hit stop, I'm just going to show you what I've done. Remember, we digitized first the color of the size of our finished size of our block. On this particular stitching, that would be this, get it that way, this line right here. Okay, I'm going to lay this right next to it. So it would be this black line right here. The second stitching should be this. This line is going to be the guidance for the cut edge of our 8.5 inch block. And this one, I just messed up. It shouldn't even be here yet. I should have put my batting down and stitched over it, so I'm just going to go back and redo it. That's the beauty, it will never show. But this is actually the batting tacking stitch right here. So this would be the outline, the edge, and the batting tacking. Let me go ahead and add my batting, and I'll be back. Alrighty, here we have my batting that's tacked down, and you can see the black stitching. Now I'm going to take my little curved scissors and simply trim around it. When I'm trimming my batting, I like to hold it up and that my stitches or my scissors get really close to that stitched edge. And you want to get close to that edge but not through it. I'm going to go ahead and trim, and I will be back shortly. Okay, I wanted to show you that when I'm trimming my batting, I always have this part of my hoop flat against the surface. I don't want to pick this up in order to trim it, because what it'll do is it cause stretch with my no-show mesh. So I just simply rotate and try to keep the part that attaches to my machine so that my whole my whole hoop is flat, and then I just very gently, without pulling away from the hoop, trim away my batting. And I probably should have told you that before I turned you off, but I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm pretty well trimmed. The nice thing about a lower loft batting is that, especially a cotton one, natural fibers, they do trim reasonably clean, so we're good to go on this one. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have to move away from my machine because I want to show you how I actually prepare my block to place it in this area. what I have is a piece of, actually this is kitchen parchment paper, and if you have a silicone sheet, a press sheet, you know, one of those things that nothing sticks to it, that's good too. I use this because I like to just throw it away. And I have my quilt basting spray. This is June Taylor's. It's not the greatest, but it works pretty well for me. Plus I can get it from Joann's, which is right here in town, which I always have to get it without realizing I'm running out. And I'm just going to give the back of my pieced block a little spray. So this is now tacky, and this will actually adhere much better and maybe save my fingertips from the needle while I'm stitching out my fabric tacking stitch. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place my quilt block in the hoop, and I'm going to align or lay my cut edges on top of that one outer stitching right there. And it should just barely cover it up. And that looks pretty square to me. It looks like it's nicely adhered. Now I'm going to, oops, I didn't want to do that. That's what I get for not putting my magnets on. Take this to the machine. And very, very carefully, I'm going to stitch my fabric placement stitch. Normally, I would be using water-soluble stabilizer. Let me get you in there. Normally, I would be using water-soluble stabilizer, but so you can see it, I'm going to go ahead and use my black thread. And I'm going to very carefully, I'm going to lower my speed and start stitching. Probably not the best idea to be using my fingers to hold this down. It is sticky. Bit of stitching. If you look, it is actually, I don't know if you can see it or not, that is just a real nice little scant 1/4 inch. And I think it's going to work really well. I love it when my plan comes together. Sometimes I've messed up blocks, but that's beside the point. Now, when I go to assemble my quilt and use this block in it, if this were the water-soluble thread, it would just simply rinse away, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. Let me go ahead and finish up with the quilting, and I'll be back. And there we have our finished block. Now, I'm going to just remove it from my hoop. And I'm going to come over here. Sorry about that. I'm sure that was just really nice to see. And I'm going to trim it down, and I'm going to go ahead and actually leave a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just because right now I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do. I can always take it and come back later and just trim out my 1/4 inch and get it done. So then I will have it ready to go and just hang on to it, because who knows, I may want a bunch of these later. And you can see as I'm trimming, I just think that is, I love how pristine that is. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you find it easy to create your own pieced blocks that are quilted in the hoop.